The day before the wedding, my wife said she was going to the gym to relax, but I received a photo on my phone. In the swimming pool, my wife was pressed closely against a strange man, and their postures were rather intimate. My wife's swimming trunks were floating right behind the two of them. I suppressed the surge of anger and blood in my body and zoomed in on the photo. What strange man? This was clearly her first love, whom she had been in love with for 6 years. Yeah, I'm going to propose to Daphne tonight. You guys have to give me a good hand. I stood at the wedding venue. Behind me was the red carpet that had been laid out and the flowers placed on both sides. On the large screen in the middle, the photos of Daphne and me kept scrolling. I looked at those scrolling photos with a tender gaze. Counting the time, I had been in a relationship with Daphne for 4 years. Tomorrow, she would officially become my wife. It was precisely because of my nervousness that I specially came to the venue to confirm the process for tomorrow. After confirming that there were no problems with all the processes, I finally felt at ease and sent messages to the brothers who had helped me prepare the proposal ceremony tonight. Of course, there's no problem, Julian. Sister-in-law will definitely be very excited. Yeah, we've all prepared everything for you. There are fireworks and drones. Just wait and see. Seeing the replies from my brothers, I touched the ring box in my pocket, and my heart was pounding like a drum. Daphne wasn't by my side at this moment. She said that since tomorrow was our wedding day, she was also a bit nervous. So instead of coming to the wedding venue with me, she went to the gym she had always liked to go to. She said she wanted to maintain the most perfect figure for tomorrow. Hearing this, I secretly smiled in my heart and stroked her head, saying, "No matter what, you're the most beautiful bride in my heart." At that time, Daphne's face immediately turned red, and I can still remember her shy expression. Counting the time, she should be finishing up soon. I opened WeChat and sent her a message asking if she wanted me to pick her up. After waiting for a while, she didn't reply to me. Just as I was about to turn off my phone, I saw that I had received a text message. I opened the text message, and there was a photo inside. I stared fixedly at the phone screen, unable to believe what I was seeing. The photo showed an intimate group photo of a man and a woman. My wife had a shy look on her face, and the man behind her had his arms around her waist. The two of them were in an intimate posture in the swimming pool. This wasn't the most important thing. When I saw those floating swimming trunks, I suddenly felt a blackout in front of my eyes and almost couldn't stand up. I had packed the things in Daphne's gym bag for her, so I could be certain that those floating swimming trunks belonged to Daphne. I leaned against the nearby table and gritted my teeth. I immediately opened my phone and sent another message to Daphne. "Honey, I suddenly have something else to deal with here. I probably can't pick you up. Come back early after you're done." I actually knew the man in the photo. No, it should be said that I only knew him unilaterally, and he didn't know me. Daphne had a first love whom she had been in love with for 6 years. I was the last one to know about this, and I didn't hear it from Daphne herself, but accidentally from her best friend. I also saw the photo from her best friend. The moment I saw the photo sent in the text message, I suddenly understood everything. Why had Daphne suddenly fallen in love with working out in the gym in the past 6 months and would go to that gym every now and then? Before, while I was washing her underwear, I was still wondering why there were holes burned by cigarette ashes on the underwear. I had already quit smoking for a long time, and now I understood everything. Although I had quit smoking, that first love hadn't quit. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became, and I didn't dare to think further. This was just what I could see on the surface. How many dirty things were there in private? Her best friend introduced Daphne's first love to me as a punishment for losing at truth or dare. So, I didn't know much about Gabriel either. I only knew that he was a sports student and was Daphne's first love. The two of them had also been in a relationship for a few years, but in the end, I didn't know why they broke up. After I knew about the existence of this person, I had once asked Daphne about it. At that time, she was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Instead, she started to question me. "Julian, what do you mean? Didn't we agree not to talk about these things? Are you doubting me by asking now?" I didn't expect that just a casual question from me would cause such a big reaction from Daphne. At that time, I thought that it was because Daphne had been hurt by Gabriel, so she would react like this. Looking at her pitiful appearance, I felt so sorry for her. After that, I never mentioned the name Gabriel again. As time passed, I thought that my relationship with Daphne was getting more and more stable, so I didn't care about this person anymore. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. Judging from Daphne's situation, her affair with Gabriel wasn't something that had just happened. Since that was the case, I couldn't alert the enemy. Otherwise, if she turned around and framed me, I really wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. After thinking for a moment, I already had a plan in my mind. Since you took a photo, there must be a video. I'll give you 10,000. Send me the video. After sending the text message, within a few minutes, I received a reply. After transferring currency worth 10,000 to this person's account in the form of virtual currency, I received what I wanted. The video was playing on my phone. I watched the intimate actions of the two of them and the spreading ripples in the water. The bitterness in my mouth was suppressed by the rising anger in my heart. Daphne, you're really something. Don't you like your first love? Then I'll be a good Samaritan to the end. Let you two be together properly. Getting the video didn't make me feel much more at ease. I wasn't unfamiliar with Daphne's phone. In fact, to make me feel at ease, I even knew her lock screen password. There wasn't the slightest trace of infidelity to be seen. If it had been before, I might have been kept in the dark. But now that I knew the fact that she had already cheated, of course, I wouldn't believe that fabricated illusion. I immediately went home and didn't have the slightest bit of nostalgia for this upcoming wedding. This was a wedding that was destined to have no groom. She wouldn't receive anyone's blessing, and I wouldn't let her have an easy time either. When I got home, the double happiness characters pasted everywhere stung my eyes. It had only been a few short hours. When I came back again, it seemed that everything was different. Those double happiness characters that I had pasted with my own hands, those scenes that I had decorated personally, now all seemed like a naked mockery of me, like a sharp knife with blood on it. It didn't give me any time to react and directly pierced through my heart. I remained silent and walked through the living room. Whoosh. I opened the drawer where the bank cards were placed, picked out Daphne's bank cards one by one, and sent their photos to my friend who worked in the bank. Buddy, I'm sorry. I'm bothering you with something here. Help me check the mobile phone numbers bound to these bank cards. Julian, what's going on? My friend on the other side was a bit confused, but he quickly helped me find out. He should have seen whose bank cards these were, so he didn't continue to ask, but said, Bro, if you have anything, remember to come to me. I'll definitely help you if I can. Thanks, bro. I knew that this matter was actually against the rules. If it was found out by others, my friend would at least get a disciplinary action. But Ethan was willing to help me, and I was really grateful to him. Seeing the last mobile phone number he sent to me, it was as if it was the final judgment of the judge in court. I pursed my dry lips and started to check the social account bound to this mobile phone number. I opened the WeChat account bound to this mobile phone number. The WeChat name was Love Daphne. The background of the moments was exactly a group photo of Daphne and Gabriel. Love Daphne. Love Daphne. I sneered in my heart. They really were afraid that others wouldn't know they were a couple. Gabriel, Daphne. The moments were set to be visible to strangers for 3 days. I opened the moments, and the only post was today. A group photo of the two of them in swimsuits at the gym. Daphne had a beaming smile and was holding Gabriel's arm. The caption was loyal to sincere to finally. With this caption paired with the group photo of the two of them, I curled my lips into a mocking smile. Yes, they were really loyal, but not to me, but to her first love whom she had loved for so many years since they liked each other so much. Of course, I would fulfill them. Didn't they say finally? Of course, I would make sure that they would still be together in the end. Compared to the WeChat secondary account, Daphne's Weibo secondary account had much more content. I saw a very familiar bracelet in her Weibo posts. There was a letter G engraved on it. The bracelet I gave to my husband. It's a pity that he's allergic to sandalwood. I suddenly stood up, walked to the jewelry cabinet, and took out the bracelet that Daphne had given me. She gave it to me on our 4th anniversary, saying that she had engraved the characters herself. Holding the sandalwood bracelet with the letter G engraved on it in my hand, my expression was a mixture of a smile and a cry. At that time, when I saw the character G engraved on the bracelet, I was a bit puzzled. Honey, why is there a G engraved on it? In the face of my confusion, Daphne evaded the question with some vague remarks. I was so immersed in the joy of receiving the gift at that time that I accepted Daphne's explanation. Now, looking at this bracelet engraved with G, I felt an overwhelming sense of nausea. It was something that Gabriel didn't want that ended up in my hands. During the years I had been in a relationship with Daphne, I prepared surprises for her on every anniversary and festival. However, the gifts I received from Daphne were extremely few. It's no exaggeration to say that the gifts my buddies gave me were much more than those from Daphne. All along, I had thought that gifts didn't really represent much and were just something to add to our relationship. How ridiculous. I let out a sigh. Her Weibo posts completely tore apart the self-deception I had been living in for all these years, and I could no longer lie to myself. Scrolling down further, there were several groups of photos with the location tagged as Sonia. Memories came flooding back like a tide. I remembered that at that time, Daphne's family and mine were discussing the wedding date. Suddenly, Daphne said she wanted to go to Sonia with her best friend to relax. I didn't suspect anything and directly transferred money to her for the trip. At that time, I thought that Daphne might be a bit anxious because of the upcoming wedding. Looking at the photos on my phone, the group photos of her and Gabriel kissing each other by the sea, on the beach, and under the blue sky, and white clouds made my hand holding the phone tremble slightly. Very happy. Our story is still going on. This short sentence made my breathing become rapid. I clicked on this Weibo post, and there were also conversations between the two of them below. Baby, next time we'll go to more places. Okay, after I'm done with my work these days, we'll go to Japan to soak in hot springs. Japan was exactly the place where we had planned to go for our honeymoon after getting married. I had booked the plane tickets for Daphne and me a long time ago and was eagerly looking forward to that day. At first, Daphne didn't want to go, but a few days later, her attitude suddenly changed. It turned out that she had discussed it with Gabriel since she wanted to be with Gabriel. Then, of course, they would be the main characters at tomorrow's wedding. I took screenshots of those records one by one and made backups. After that, I restored the house to its original state, put the bank cards I'd taken out back one by one, and as for that sandalwood bracelet engraved with G, I also put it back in the jewelry cabinet. If I used to feel as sweet as eating candy when I saw this bracelet. Now, the reason I didn't throw it away was to remind myself, don't be soft-hearted. Click. The door lock opened. Honey, you're at home. Daphne's voice came from outside the room. I composed my expression and put on a smile. Yes, honey. I'm sorry. I just finished dealing with some things. Daphne was wearing a sports outfit and exuded a sense of satisfaction. It's okay, honey. By the way, how's the wedding venue decorated? I looked down at my phone and only looked up after seeing that the file on WeChat had been successfully received. It's all decorated very well. By the way, my buddy said he seemed to see you at the gym today. He said you were with a man. As I spoke, I watched the change in Daphne's expression. I had to say that she really was a woman who could cheat without anyone noticing. Even after hearing what I just said, she still maintained her composure and a smile on her face. She took off her sports jacket as if it was nothing. Oh, that was my personal fitness trainer. I signed up for his private classes. I went there today because I wanted him to guide me on my posture. As she said this, she took my hand. Didn't you say you wanted me to be the most beautiful bride? Daphne pretended to be angry and poked my shoulder. Don't think wrongly. Am I that kind of person? Looking at Daphne's appearance, she was clearly waiting for me to coax her. If it were the usual me, I would probably have given in and surrendered long ago. But now, I found everything dull and uninteresting. The Daphne in front of me, pretending to be angry, seemed extremely ridiculous. I'm not angry. You just finished working out. Take a shower. You smell like sweat. After saying that, I ignored the stiff smile on Daphne's face. I stood up and opened the file on WeChat. By the way, at the beginning of the document, there were 5 clear words. Gabriel married Julian. I'm downstairs. Okay, I'm coming down. I stood by the window. Ethan's car was parked downstairs. Whether it was the mobile phone number of Daphne that I had just found out or the information about Gabriel that I received on WeChat, all of them were things I'd asked my buddies to help me with. They weren't fools. Naturally, they could piece together the general situation of the matter from my actions. Ethan came to find me at this time. I guess he was probably afraid that I might do something irrational because I couldn't think things through. I directly went out and downstairs, not wanting to stay in the same space as Daphne. I opened the car door. Besides Ethan, there were several other buddies in the car. They were all the ones who were originally going to help me prepare for the proposal ceremony tonight. Julian. Ethan hesitated to speak and looked at me with some concern. I waved my hand at him and let out a sigh. The situation is what it is. I won't explain it to you one by one. What about tomorrow's wedding? Daphne is like this. You mustn't be impulsive and marry her just out of spite. Daniel was the youngest among us and full of youthful vigor. Seeing my slightly dejected expression, he was even more nervous. It won't happen, Daniel. Tomorrow's wedding will proceed as normal, but the main characters of the wedding will definitely not be me. I told the few of them the plan I had come up with. After listening, Ethan seemed to be deep in thought. He patted me on the shoulder. Now I believe that you're really okay. I smiled in response. I was really blinded by love in the past few years. Now that I've seen things clearly, I actually feel much more relaxed. Okay, then everyone go and get ready. It'll depend on all of you tomorrow. During the years I had been with Daphne, I had always been the one making compromises. My buddies had actually seen all this, but they also saw how much I liked Daphne. Caught in the middle, they didn't know what to say. Now that they saw that I could wake up from this, they were extremely happy. Looking at my buddies busying themselves, I felt a mix of bitterness and a sour feeling in my heart. The next day at the wedding venue, with a smile on my face, I stood at the entrance of the banquet hall in a suit. Ethan and the other buddies were wearing groomsmen's suits and were distributing invitations to the guests entering the door. Actually, I hadn't planned to distribute paper invitations at first. Usually, we used electronic invitations. The paper invitations being distributed now were also rushed to be made overnight by someone, taking a lot of effort from my buddies. Daphne stood beside me in a wedding dress, holding an invitation and examining it. Honey, the guests have all arrived. Why are you still distributing these invitations? After looking at it for a long time and finding nothing special, she put the invitation down in boredom. We still need a sense of ritual. After all, today is a wedding. I casually found an excuse to procrastinate and didn't even want to look at Daphne. Before coming here, I first went to Daphne's home because I had to pick up the bride first. Before going, Daphne had been giving various hints, asking me to bring more money to give red envelopes to her best friends as door-opening gifts. Of course, I agreed. Anyway, I would get all the money back in the end. Just now, at her parents' home, the smile on Daphne's face hadn't faded. The way I was generous was really saving their face. Daphne's parents were also all smiles and greeted me warmly. Daphne's family was all the same. They agreed to Daphne being with me because they were eyeing my family's wealth. Daphne's parents had broken up the loving couple just because they looked down on Gabriel. I just found out about this yesterday. However, who could have guessed that the two of them had remained in an ambiguous relationship all these years and had been having an affair in secret? I sneered in my heart. I just found out, and Gabriel's wife also just found out. I could hold my temper, but Mia and Gabriel's brothers-in-law couldn't. As Ethan was distributing the invitations, he sent me a message. It's already Julian. Mia and the others are already on their way here. After a moment like this, Daphne's eyes lit up, and she waved forward. Gabriel. I looked in the direction she was waving. The person in the photo appeared in front of me. However, I wasn't as angry as I had imagined. Instead, I felt a sense of indifference, as if looking down on him. Gabriel was dressed in a suit and looked more like the groom than I did. He smiled and walked beside Daphne, extending his hand to me. Wish you a happy wedding. I'm Daphne's personal fitness trainer. Hello, I'm Julian. The other main character of the wedding had arrived. I shook hands with him with a smile. I've always heard Daphne talk about you. Now that I see you, you really are a handsome and talented man. Although Gabriel was complimenting me, his gaze was fixed directly on Daphne beside me, as if he was afraid that I wouldn't notice the relationship between the two of them. Okay. Since you're here, come in first. Perhaps she was really afraid. Daphne pushed and shoved Gabriel, urging him to go in. As she pushed him, she glanced at me out of the corner of her eye, fearing that I would say something more. These series of small actions of hers seemed extremely ridiculous to me. What? You weren't afraid when you were having an affair before, but now that it's time for the wedding, you're afraid? Why don't you introduce me to your first love? I sneered in my heart. It wasn't that she was afraid of me finding out. Clearly, she was afraid that she couldn't marry me and couldn't get a share of my money. Gabriel was just a gigolo. He first lived off his own wife, and now he was living off Daphne. If she separated from me, where would Daphne get the money to support a gigolo? At that moment, Ethan came over. I'll show you in since you're Daphne's personal fitness trainer. You're also our friend. I'll take you to sit at the table with her friends. His expression was a bit stiff. As my buddy, it was really difficult for him to have a good attitude towards Gabriel. Moreover, after learning about those things, he no longer addressed Daphne as sister-in-law, but called her by her full name. Daphne didn't seem to react to the change in Ethan's attitude. Okay, Daphne, wish you a happy wedding. Before leaving, the two of them hugged. In public, Gabriel couldn't resist taking advantage of Daphne before leaving. When they separated, Daphne's earlobes were red. Ethan led Gabriel to his designated seat and sat beside him, waiting for the good show to begin. Sitting at the same table was also Daphne's best friend, Ava, who had lost at Truth or Dare. Ava looked a bit embarrassed. After nodding at Gabriel, she stopped talking. Time passed minute by minute, and soon it was time for the wedding to start. Daphne's father was dressed in formal attire, ready to lead his daughter's hand down the red carpet. My parents were sitting in their seats with serious expressions. I had informed them in advance. My father was so angry that he was ready to confront Daphne and her parents face to face. I stopped him. Confronting them face to face was so boring. I wanted to make her lose her reputation completely. Standing on the red carpet, I had no expression on my face. When the hands of the watch on my wrist turned to 12 o'clock, the music started. One beam of light shone on me, and another beam, along with the opening of the door, shone on the opposite side of me. Daphne's father led Daphne's hand towards me. Soon, the two of them were standing opposite me. Daphne's father picked up the microphone and was full of emotions. Julian is young and promising, a young man worthy of trust. But my daughter has also been doted on by us since she was a child. Although her temper is a bit spoiled, she is a person who is dedicated and takes care of the family. Julian, if you marry my daughter, you must treat her well. As he said this, he was about to place Daphne's hand into mine. Daphne gave me a shy look and took a step forward. I didn't move. I just looked at Daphne with a smile. All the guests' eyes were focused on us. Daphne frowned and looked at me, who remained unmoved. I silently counted in my heart. 3, 2, 1, bang. The large screen that had been showing the rotating photos was turned off. The music stopped immediately, and two beams of white light shone on Gabriel and Daphne, respectively. Special colored lights filled the entire venue. Alas, why did the invitation card change color? Some people looked at the glowing invitation card in surprise. After opening the invitation card, the newly appeared names gave everyone a shock. Gabriel XD Daphne. Welcome to witness our extramarital affair. Love. The invitation card were customized and would display different words under special lights. Ethan curled the corner of his mouth. Looking at Gabriel, who was enveloped in white light, and trying to stand up and leave, he reached out and pressed him down. Ava opened her mouth wide and stared at the scene in front of her in astonishment. Daphne, who was standing in front of me, almost gritted her teeth to pieces. She said in a hateful voice, "Julian, what do you mean?" Looking at her indignant appearance, I laughed. Don't be in a hurry. The large screen lit up again. This time, it was no longer showing the rotating photos, but was divided into two parts. On the left was the video that I'd spent $10,000 on, and on the right were the chat records between her and Gabriel. Daphne had been on high alert all the time, but Gabriel showed many flaws. It was very easy for me to obtain the chat records between the two of them. Don't worry, after I get married to Julian, I'll have plenty of money. Then I'll open a gym for you. Thank you, my dear. Will you come to my place tonight? Mia is on a business trip and not at home. You divorce that _ as soon as possible. Otherwise, I won't open a gym for you. I know, my dear. If it weren't for those brothers-in-law, who would still care about that shrew? The guests raised their phones one after another and started filming. Who would miss such good gossip material? Just then, the door was kicked open with a bang. The person who came was the underscore in Daphne's mouth, the so-called shrew in Gabriel's words, Mia. Behind Mia were several strong men who walked in menacingly. The video and chat records on a large screen were so obvious that the group saw them as soon as they came in. Mia was so angry that she laughed. She scanned the banquet hall and walked directly towards Gabriel. Without saying a word, she slapped Gabriel's face so hard that it turned to one side. After slapping him, she directly said, "Divorce." Then she walked towards Daphne. On the stage, I first looked at the dramatic scene below and then turned around and glanced at Daphne in front of me, who was clenching her teeth and looking pale. Daphne's father blushed. His lips trembled a few times, but he still couldn't say anything. Daphne's parents cared about their image. Now that they were so embarrassed in public, it was really difficult for them. However, I had no sympathy at all. After all, this was the result of their good daughter's actions, and they had to swallow the bitter pill, no matter how bitter it was. Daphne couldn't stand it anymore. She had been spoiled since childhood. She rushed directly in front of me, looking almost crazy. She raised her right hand and was about to slap me. I didn't need to block at all. Mia, who was walking towards Daphne, directly kicked her off the stage. Daphne's father tried to stop her, but was blocked by the strong man. "How dare you hit me?" Daphne was kicked down. Her hair was disheveled, and her wedding dress was all wrinkled. "You're really amusing. Don't you understand the current situation?" Mia laughed with a snort. She went down from the stage, grabbed Daphne's hair, and slapped her left and right. Daphne couldn't block at all and could only scream. In the chaos, my eyes met hers. She looked at me with pleading eyes, hoping that I would save her. I just went down the stage and walked beside the woman who had been looking at me. "Long time no see, Emma." Emma had a smile at the corner of her eyes and took a sip of the wine in her glass. "Not bad. You can guess it's me." Before I could continue chatting with Emma, I saw Gabriel, whose face was covered in blood and who had footprints all over his body, being carried by Mia's brother-in-law. He was thrown beside her. Although Gabriel had been arrogant in his WeChat chat with Daphne, everyone knew that he lived so comfortably only because he was living off Mia. Now that his affair had been exposed and his good days were over, he was more afraid than anyone else. Wife, listen to my explanation." Gabriel hugged Mia's leg and pleaded. "It was this girl who seduced me. I was just having some fun with her." Believe me, if the guests who didn't know the truth hadn't seen the video and chat records just now, they might have really believed him. Now, hearing his words, the guests holding their phones whispered to each other. "This man looks a bit familiar. He seems to be a personal fitness trainer at T-Gym. TSK. He's been two-timing and it was exposed at a wedding. If I were his wife, I would have beaten him to death." Although they were whispering, it was enough for Gabriel to hear. He carefully glanced at Mia's expression. After seeing that she had no expression on her face, he quickly raised his hand and swore, "Wife, I promise that I'll break off the relationship with her completely from now on." As soon as he finished speaking, Daphne, whose cheek was swollen and whose wedding dress was hanging on her body in a mess, wasn't willing to let it go. Her eyes, bloodshot and wide open, stared at Gabriel in disbelief. "Gabriel, we've been together for at least 5 years. How dare you say I seduced you?" Upon hearing these words, the entire audience was in an uproar, especially Ethan, who had witnessed my relationship with Daphne. What she said now was clearly a blatant slap in my face. I could feel that everyone's gaze had shifted to me at this moment. 5 years. It was like a sharp blade cutting my thoughts into chaos. Looking at the two of them biting each other, I felt a bit tired. Mia looked at me, and I understood what she meant. I waved my hand at her. She turned around and said in a cold voice, "Brother, do it." Her second brother took out a telescopic baton from behind his back, and her eldest brother held Gabriel down. Under Gabriel's terrified gaze, the baton sliced through the air. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. The man's screams echoed, and the sound of the baton hitting his flesh made everyone's blood run cold. Daphne stood there stunned. Mia smiled and patted her face. "Don't worry, it'll be your turn soon. After all, it's been 5 years. I have to leave you with some memories." She lit a cigarette, took a puff, and then pressed it hard against Daphne's neck. 5 times. Mia's second brother worked in the media industry and had made thorough preparations that day. In an instant, the video of that day spread everywhere. I didn't know who made a PDF of the two of them, and the timeline in it was even clearer than what I knew. Perhaps because we shared the same experience of being betrayed, Mia reduced my presence in this matter. After that day, Gabriel no longer worked at the gym. His legs were broken and he was hospitalized. As for Daphne, she went back to live with her parents. I sent all her things back to her parents' home. There was also a piece of paper in the express box. It clearly stated how much money her family owed me. Since the wedding couldn't take place, they had to return every penny I had given them. Both Daphne and her mother spent money like water. The betrothal gift I had given to Daphne's family before was used by her mother to pay the down payment for a house. The betrothal gift of 1 million yuan was only enough for the down payment. Daphne's family was just an ordinary family. I didn't know where her mother got the courage to buy such an expensive house. Later, I found out they had planned to make me pay off the subsequent mortgage. Now, I wanted to see how they were going to return that 1 million yuan to me. What are you thinking about? Emma's voice broke through my thoughts. Rubbing my forehead, I looked at the charming woman in front of me who was stirring her coffee spoon. I'm thinking about how to wrap things up. Well, since the wedding didn't happen, you're still single. How about we give it a try? She smiled sweetly and looked at me with confidence. I swallowed hard, looking completely surprised. After the farce ended yesterday, I celebrated with my buddies. Julian, it's okay. The next one will be better. Yeah, Julian. Fortunately, you didn't get married. If you had, who knows how much Daphne would have cheated you out of? I smiled and responded to them one by one. When it was over, Ethan was the last one to leave. He patted me on the shoulder and didn't say anything. Then he stuffed something into my pocket. After all my buddies left, I stood on the balcony alone and smoked a cigarette. I looked up at the moon in the sky. When I came to my senses, I suddenly realized tears had welled up in my eyes and fell to the ground. I took out the thing Ethan had left me from my pocket, a pack of tissues. I laughed and cried at the same time. Just then, there was another knock on the door. Who is it? It's me. A familiar female voice came from outside the door. I wiped my tears in a hurry and opened the door. As soon as I opened the door and Emma stuck her head in, she said, "Ha, I knew you were crying." I blushed and quickly invited her in. Why didn't you tell me you were back from abroad? I originally wanted to give you a surprise, and it really turned out to be a surprise for you. By the way, how did you figure out it was me? You've been messing with virtual currency since high school. How could I not know it was you? As soon as I finished speaking, we both laughed. Emma and I were high school classmates. At that time, Emma, Ethan, and I were known as the Iron Triangle and had a very good relationship. However, during our senior year of high school, Emma went abroad. Although we had always kept in touch, we hadn't met in person. Are you still feeling sad? I shook my head and replied, Actually, I'm not sad. I just feel like all my sincerity over the years has been wasted on a dog. Emma held her face in her hands and listened to me just like she did in high school. I couldn't help but ask the question that had puzzled me for years. Emma, why were you so determined to go abroad during our senior year of high school? Given Emma's grades at that time, going abroad wasn't the best choice. Moreover, her decision to go abroad was sudden. When Emma heard my question, she sighed and gave me a look of disappointment. After all these years, you're still as dense as ever. Do you remember what you did during our senior year of high school? What did I do during our senior year of high school? I thought left and right, but couldn't figure it out. Seeing this, Emma smiled instead. Think about it carefully. Give me the answer tomorrow. After saying that, she left directly, as free and easy as she was back then. I really couldn't figure it out, so I decided to seek help from an outside source. After listening to me, Ethan fell into a long silence. Finally, he only managed to say, Do you remember what Emma said at our last gathering before she left in the coffee shop? Looking at the beautiful face of the girl in front of me, I thought, no, the woman. Her face no longer had the childishness of the past, but I could still see the shadow of the girl she used to be. When I heard Emma's words, how about we give it a try? The memories of the past unfolded before my eyes. Our last gathering was at a hot pot restaurant. It was winter that day, and it was snowing heavily. The three of us stood at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant, looking at the falling snow, and no one said a word. Before we parted, Emma said to me, "I always strive to be the best in everything, but this time I was one step too late." Back then, I thought she was talking about her studies. Now that I think about it, I was really stupid and cute. One step too late. It turned out that she was one step too late in confessing her feelings. On the eve of her going abroad, I got together with Daphne. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the caller ID and hung up the phone. "Aren't you going to answer it?" Emma raised an eyebrow. I didn't answer, but said, "Let's give it a try." Everything seemed to happen naturally, and Emma and I started living together. We were highly compatible, as if we were made for each other. As soon as we confirmed our relationship, I made it public. When Ethan saw it, he wasn't surprised at all and even muttered, "You should have been together a long time ago. If it weren't for Daphne, you might even have a child by now." Emma scolded him with a laugh. "Stop talking. If we had a child, you'd be the one taking care of it." Ethan fell silent, and Emma and I looked at each other and smiled. Half a month later, I heard a lot of news about Daphne and Gabriel. For example, Gabriel got a divorce and left the house with nothing. Mia only broke his legs and made him leave the house penniless. She had actually shown mercy. Another example was that Daphne had broken up with her family. Despite everyone's objections, she married Gabriel. When I saw this news, I wasn't surprised. Perhaps for her, Gabriel, who was her first love and the white moonlight in her heart, really had a unique charm in her eyes. I wonder when Daphne will find out. The incident that made Gabriel her white moonlight was completely a self-directed and self-acted play by Gabriel. The suspension bridge effect, when he saved the beauty, made it easy for an innocent little girl to fall in love with this hero. No matter how much time passed, this hero would always be idealized in her heart. After the two got married, Daphne had to go out to work. Her family couldn't care less about her. Leaving other things aside, just the need to pay back the 1 million yuan betrothal gift I gave them was enough to make them overwhelmed. I had already set a time limit. Once the time limit was up and they couldn't pay it back, I would sue them immediately. Daphne's family wouldn't have an easy time without anyone else's help. And with Daphne being spoiled since childhood, she didn't want to work after just a few days. When she went back, she had to face Gabriel's sarcastic remarks. After a while, Daphne couldn't stand it anymore, and the white moonlight filter was shattered by reality. She changed her phone number and called me again. I had already blocked her previous phone number. "Hello, Julian. I was wrong. Please forgive me." "Okay." Daphne's crying voice came from the other end of the phone. I hung up the phone immediately, looking disgusted. For me, hearing Daphne's voice was like coming into contact with something dirty. When Emma saw my expression, she knew who had just called. "Why don't you talk to her parents? It's not a good thing that she keeps harassing you." I nodded, frowning. I need to pick a time and solve everything as soon as possible. This time, I truly want to be with someone forever. After Gabriel's legs were almost fully recovered, Daphne forced him to go to work. She had always been the type to spend money recklessly. If Gabriel hadn't left the house penniless after the divorce, he might still have some money for her to squander. Now, both of them were penniless, but she still had that spoiled temperament. Who could stand it? Daphne would often make a scene, threatening to commit suicide. Gabriel had always been a gigolo. Now that he had no one to mooch off, and he had to face Daphne's behavior every day, he couldn't take it anymore. So, her so-called white moonlight simply forgot about Daphne after finding a new person to rely on. Previously, Gabriel had agreed to marry Daphne because Mia had forced him, saying that if he didn't marry Daphne, she would break his other leg. But in Daphne's eyes, things took on a different meaning. In her view, it was clearly Gabriel who had taken the initiative to marry her. Wasn't this a sign that her white moonlight had fallen in love with her? So when she saw Gabriel relying on another rich woman and being with her, Daphne went crazy. She kept a close eye on Gabriel all the time. Whenever she saw him with a woman, she would go and interfere. Once or twice was okay, but after it happened many times, Gabriel couldn't stand it either. He directly ran away to another city and blocked all of Daphne's contact information. As for their marriage, I guessed it would end in divorce. With her white moonlight deserting her and her family cutting off relations with her, Daphne was truly at the end of her rope and came up with some unscrupulous ideas. Relying on her appearance, she started making quick money. After making money for the first time, she became addicted to it. In the end, she contracted AIDS and died in bed. Daphne's parents didn't learn of this news until their daughter's body had grown cold. Daphne's father's hair turned white overnight. Daphne's mother sold all the houses. After paying back the money they owed me, the two of them went to another city. When I heard this news, I didn't feel anything. This was the path she had chosen herself. She had misjudged people, and she couldn't blame others for it. It was precisely because of my nervousness that I specially came to the venue to confirm the process for tomorrow. This was a grand wedding. I willingly took her hand from her father. With the blessings of my parents, my brothers, and all the guests, I made a promise to her to be together for a lifetime. I remembered the moonlight that night again. Perhaps the so-called white moonlight wasn't truly the most beautiful. The person who can cry with you and laugh with you is the real white moonlight that illuminates your path ahead.